My name is Shane Callender. I'm a firefighter paramedic with Monterey County Regional Fire District. I was driving the fire truck and we got a call kind of late at night for a vehicle accident up Pine Canyon. So we responded to that, and because I knew the location, I knew where Ross lived, I kind of had a gut feeling of what might have been going on. And it wasn't until the fire engine got on scene and gave an update, and that's kind of when my heart sank a little bit, because I kind of had a feeling what was going on. I wasn't sure who was alive. I just heard there was 2 people, 1 fatality. So I had a feeling it could have been him, but I wasn't sure yet until I arrived on scene, and we parked at the bottom because our fire engine couldn't make it up the narrow road. So we had someone else take us to the top, and by the time we got to the top, they were pulling Alex up from the ditch, and I'd gotten word that there was a fatality, and so I went down to see, and it was him. Sorry. Sorry. So I had So I took a second and walked back up and had to go back to work and help put Alex in the truck and take him to the ambulance. And at that time, we came back to pull Ross up and take him back down and just wait. They were coming down and they had to stop, so they pulled their emergency brake and lost traction, and they first rolled right here because you could see where all the glass is. And they rolled a few more times down and stopped at that tree about halfway down the embankment.
Welcome to our family home. This is where Ross was born and raised in Salinas, California. I'm Rosemary Tarp, Ross's Nana.
My name's Jarrett Carroll, and I'm a carpenter here in Salinas for the past 6 years now.
My name's Parker Gowing. I'm an electrician here in Salinas, California for about 6.5 years.
My name is Kenny Ellis, and I'm a firefighter for CAL FIRE.
Go ahead.
My name's Edward Lynn Brash. I drive concrete mixer truck for Granite Rock.
My name's Jack Freeze, and I'm an IndyCar mechanic for Chip Ganassi Racing.
My name's Alex Martinez. Professions, I do a lot of dirt bike riding, a lot of car mechanics, kind of like a overall, jack of all trades, master of none.
My full name is Austin Pettit, and I work at Alcohol Distribution. I'm a maintenance mechanic there.
The first time I met Ross was in the delivery room. I was in the delivery room with Jody when she had Ross, and I got to hold him probably 10 minutes after he was born. And what I remember the most about Ross is he had floppy, cute ears, and he had them his whole life, but at a certain age he grew into them. So Ross and Jody lived with us for a few years after he was born, and Brad and I would work at the ranch, and we would take him to work with us.
And I was working at the hospital and I met his mother, Jody. She already had Ross when I met her, and we started dating, and we got married, and I ended up adopting Ross. One of the most meaningful parts of my life was when I adopted Ross and he became a part of my life. I met her family, met her son, and we took him on some of our dates, and he just became a part of me.
So I first met Ross at Salinas High. I graduated class of 2014. We were sitting there all having lunch in the parking lot on the back of my truck, and Ross kind of drove in and just plopped up on the truck and introduced himself, and we became pretty good friends, and started driving around up here on the ranch, and then later started hunting and became even better friends.
I first met Ross when we were really young in kindergarten at, I believe, Spreckles Elementary. And I think we were both just weirdos, and we both liked, you know, catching lizards and catching frogs.
When I first met Ross was probably end of elementary school, like going into our middle school years, and you know, we just ride bikes together. Jack, Freeze, and Ross and I would ride our bikes around Las Palmas, Indian Springs, and just, you know, do what kids did back then. And
I went to Buena Vista Middle School and went to Salinas High. That's where I met Ross Tarp through some mutual friends, and have been friends with him ever since. We did anything from four-wheeling to shooting to hanging out. We would take the vehicles up trails, into mud pits, over rocks, anything. We'll either have someone in front of us or behind us looking at our route of travel, and if we feel like we can't do it, then we'll just back down and try it again, or we'll just move on to the next one. I started riding dirt bikes probably around 2002. I was 6 years old, had a PW80, and then from there I just kept riding and got bigger and bought bigger bikes, and now I have a 2015 KTM 250.
So some of the activities that Ross and I used to enjoy doing was four-wheeling, hunting, fishing. Four-wheeling was mostly up here at the ranch.
Off-roading with Ross was always an exciting time. You know, we would go to Hollister back when I had a Jeep and, you know, explore all the trails that are up there. And
yeah, I met Ross in high school at Salinas High. We had a lot of the same friends, and we hit it off pretty well. The things we would do, we spent a lot of time in the Salinas River right down the street from here. We did some dirt bike riding, but yeah, spent, I would say, a majority of our time in the river, just driving our vehicles around. So some of the places we would ride, one of them being Hollister Hills. The types of trails, I mean, Ross being Ross, he didn't care what it was as long as we were all together, we were riding. Doesn't matter how technical it was, he was always happy to ride it.
So me and Ross, we had a lot of fun together. He was super fun. You know, his laugh would like make anybody laugh. He'd light up a room, and we'd have so much fun. Remember when we were really young, we were catching lizards, and behind the house over here, we brought him in the house, and his mom and his grandparents were, I think they were pretty upset that we brought lizards into the house, and we were covered in dirt and laughing and smiling and just having a good time as little kids, you know. Well, Ross was just a goofball. I mean, you ask anybody around, and he's just the complete, like, goofball. Like, anything he would be doing, he'd just do it in the most weird way or funny way, or anytime we'd be out doing something, you knew what you were going to get from Ross. He was just going to be himself, and himself was just like the funniest goofball, like probably one of the most genuine people that I've ever known.
So some of the experiences I had with Ross when we were going to Buena Vista Middle School in Salinas, California, is some days after school, he mentioned that he had a ranch and stuff like that. So me being around that lifestyle as well, I told him I'd like to come out, and so some of the days after school we started going out to the ranch, and we both had these little mini bikes at the time, they call them, and he had a Honda Mini Trail, a little 70, and you know, we didn't have our driver's license or anything yet, so we would, after school, that was like a treat to us, is we would come out here and we would take the bikes down. And
so the first time I met Ross, I was dating his sister Riley, and we both found out that we kind of had an interest in dirt bikes and adrenaline. And then more and more times we decided to go riding, and and turns out he ended up watching Supercross just as much as I did. He loved racing. And then he introduced me to a lot of his close buddies and just fit right in with all the riders. And we would go riding up here on Pine Canyon whenever we would get a chance. Just have a blast.
A lot of the things that we did were, extreme sports, things that have high risk, high reward. Anything to kind of get our heart pumping was what we wanted to do. We didn't like football or baseball. We liked, something that you could really get hurt on. If you take a video, it looks even cooler. So there really was no goal for us as far as riding. I was just riding just to hang out with my friend, that was it. And that's what we did.
So the first bike right here is a 2021 Honda 250R, 4-stroke. Before that, he's always been on a little Kawasaki 110 pit bike. He's always ridden that. I don't think he's ever really been on a big bike. And when he did finally get on the big bike, he was a natural.
So when I first met Ross at a young age, he's inspired me to be mechanically inclined. He's always helped me with projects that I've had, things that have gone wrong. He's always lended a helping hand. He was always willing to help you, whether it was 2 a.m. or noon on a Saturday. He would tell you to come on out and we'll fix it, or sometimes he'd even come to you. And with that mindset and just being so open to work on whatever and whenever has helped me throughout my career so far as an IndyCar mechanic, and just being willing to dive into something head first and accept the outcome, whether you can do it or not. Just giving it a shot's half the effort. So that was something that Ross has always been about.
Brad and I had so much fun when we would take Ross on many of our vacations. Being with the grandkids is just a joy. One of the one trip that we recall is when we took him to Disneyland, and he loved the Autotopia ride, the car ride. He got his own car. I think that's when he first started his love with cars.
Another place we ride is my friend's ranch in Gonzales. It's more of the wide open trails, and have as much fun as we could. So the trails we would ride would encompass everything. So a lot of steep terrain, a lot of technical terrain, a lot of single trails, a lot of hillside, mid-slope roads.
Well, Ross and I were really into trucks and, off-road vehicles. Him more so off-road vehicles, but he helped me basically build my truck to what it is nowadays. And I think without Ross, my truck would not be anything close to what it is today. I can't count how many times I was stumped on something, had my truck half taken apart, and I'd give him a call, and if he wasn't able to make it over to help me out, he would, give me step by step, basically anything I wanted to know. He was the 12-valve guru for trucks. Well, Ross could fix anything with a motor. Didn't matter what it was, he'd figure it out some way, shape, or form. I don't even know who taught him how to do it. I'm pretty sure he just taught himself how to do it. We would spend countless nights in the shop at the house. We would be building up his Willys Jeep or his Toyota Crawler, or just working on his truck. And he would do things differently, to put it in nice words. He made a hood scoop out of a tin flower pot. I'm pretty sure he stole from his grandma, cut it in half and welded it to the hood of his Willys Jeep, and I think that was just perfect.
He loved everything. He loved all kinds of cars that he could fix. He brought home a lot of vehicles to work on, and he could wrap his little finger around his papa, because Papa would fall for, "This is a good deal, Papa. We need to get this." So he loved everything, and he knew how to fix everything too as well.
He was a welder. He was a Him and Jack did welding at the ROP for school, and
Another fun thing we did with Ross, was he really liked to go fishing, so we took him to Los Banos to the canals, and it was like late at night, so you got to be very careful going down the canal roads. And I just remember Ross, having a really good time and enjoying the time with all of our friends and just hanging out with everyone. And I'm not too sure if we caught any fish, but I'm sure we had a really good time.
Yeah, we used to go fishing at nighttime in Elkhorn Slough. We used to go fish for sharks and bat rays. The best time to fish for those is at nighttime. And we'd back our trucks up to the edge of the water, and we'd cast our lines out and just like hang out there for hours and just wait for something to hit.
the river fire started up on the ranch about a mile up in the gate. Parked my car, jumped in my daughter's Jeep, and made my way up the canyon. It's just a narrow one-lane road, and you've got 40 fire trucks trying to get up there, and hand crews, bulldozers, everything's coming. So I just stayed around and fought the fire and put the fire out in the front yard. It burned right through the front yard. Tankers were dropping on the house, and it was quite of an event. And then after it all calmed down, then Ross decided to come back, and I think he spent 3 days with us. Everybody's down at the little River Road Market with Mose, and Ross was really good friends with Adam, and had no power, so they couldn't turn on the generator to turn on the gas pumps, because Adam never filled up the generator, the big commercial generator. So Ross is up here taking diesel out of our tank for the ranch, and he's shuttling it down there in 5-gallon buckets until he got enough fuel in that generator to get it started. And then after that, Ross was the hero, because we donated some diesel that, oh boy, we was always trying to, we just enjoyed life. And I wasn't much of a hunter. Ross was always up here hunting, and that was one of his favorite things. And he'd always come home with a deer strapped on the hood of the Jeep, something. He'd get a pig, get a deer, he'd bring it home and take care of it. And
Well, something else I would do with Ross is we would go pig hunting and deer hunting, and Ross would always get super amped up whenever we saw pigs or deer and we were actually hunting them. I mean, they call it buck fever for a reason, and he was just like a leaf on a tree, and he would tell us like, hey, we're gonna do this, because he knew the place the best. So he would tell us, hey, we're gonna go, you guys are gonna walk around this side, us two are gonna walk around the other side.
So some of the hunting procedures that we followed were going around, checking the tires for air, making sure there was ropes in there, come along just in case, and then also having plenty of water for when you were out hiking.
For instance, never have a loaded gun in the car. Always make sure that everyone was wearing, an orange hat or something visible so that you could see each other from across a canyon or whatnot. Making sure that, you had plenty of water in your backpack if you were out hiking.
So some of the protective gear that we would wear would be helmets, goggles, chest protectors, kidney belt, neck brace, boots, riding pants, and then riding jerseys. We wore a lot of protective gear, and sometimes it felt very clunky, but it really protected us when we would have a crash.
So I first got the news about Ross around, I guess it would be around 7 a.m. in the morning. A good friend had called me and let me know he'd passed over the night, and I just couldn't believe it. I was on my way to the ranch to go feed, and we were gonna go pig hunt later that evening. I just couldn't believe it. And from there, I kind of found out a little more as the day went on, and called my friends, the close friends, to let them know what had happened. And everybody was just kind of in shock and awe, and didn't really know why it happened or how to such a good person. Yeah.
It was a very tragic thing that happened. It's very hard to still believe that that is what happened, as much as we don't want that to be the reality of things, you know. As long as we still have each other and, you know, we still share the memories all the time. Like, you know, even going deer hunting this season, I couldn't remember a time that we didn't talk about Ross, you know, and the memories that we had and all the fun things that we wish that we could have Ross there with us. And, you know, it's a lot to handle and it's a lot to take in, but as long as we know that, you know, he's looking down on us and making sure that we're all right, I know that everything's going to be fine.
So that night of Ross's accident, I think he was a little excited to get up in the hills. He was ready to go, kind of deal, and just excited. And I think he missed some of those safety steps that we'd previously talked about, and checking the brakes. And just one little thing like that cost him and everybody. You know, it didn't just hurt him; it hurt the whole family and all of his friends. Everybody was impacted. So make sure you check the brakes and go through the proper safety instructions before going up into the hills.
You know, a few things that could have been a little bit more precautious as the time of Ross going up into the mountains with his friend was, you know, making sure that the seatbelts were working securely, you know, the brakes were completely working fine. You know, same thing we were talking about earlier in the statement was, you know, air in the tires, making sure that everything was working functionably on the car.
So we planned on having a bonfire the night of the accident, and we did. We had a bonfire. It was me, Ross, Riley, and Austin, and just sitting around the fire, chit-chatting. You know, we had a couple drinks, not very many at all, and Ross had this car that we pretty much would just beat up for fun. He got it for free. He didn't care about it. That's what he wanted. That's what he liked to do to it. And the last time we took it out, it got a flat, so we found a spare tire for it. Not a wheel, but a tire. So Ross decided to change that tire at like 11 o'clock at night. So we changed it, and as soon as we got that tire on, I think we told Austin that where we were going. And normally it takes us about, I don't know, 30 minutes round trip up to the top of the hill and back down. And so we took off. The brakes weren't that great. Seatbelts really didn't work in it all that well. And we went. So we went up to the top of the hill, his favorite spot, and you know, sat there for a couple minutes, enjoyed the view, and then headed our way back down. And we weren't but a mile away from the house when we came around a turn, and the gate was closer than we thought it was. The terrain had changed, so we didn't recognize where we were at exactly. And so because the brakes weren't working that great, he pulled the e-brake, and the e-brake sent us sideways, and there was this berm on the side of the road. The back tire hit the berm. As soon as it hit, it rolled once on top of the road, and then I think 3 times downhill. And we were there for 2 hours waiting. I was stuck. Ross wasn't responsive, and we were about a mile up in the hills, so nobody could hear us. Nobody knew what was going on. The only way that somebody figured out where we were, they didn't know what happened, was because we weren't back like we normally were in the amount of time that it normally takes. And so they came looking for us, and they found us.
So this bench is, well, I got the slab off of a job site, the one we're sitting on here, and then our buddy Sam picked up the backside there, and Parker, Sam, and I all spent time sanding it, staining it. Sam did all the routing work on it, and We did a little bit of fabricating for the metal brackets down here, and just kind of thought it was a good idea to give him a spot, one of his favorite spots up here, to put a memory up here for everybody to kind of come up here when they're feeling down or just want to feel like they're spending some time with him.
I did mostly, the sanding of the bench and the outlines of Ross's name on the bench, and the colors on the background of it, and prepping everything and getting everything ready and making sure that it was looking really good for Ross's spot up here.
With Ross, we would 9 times out of 10 we'd go to the top of the ranch and park whatever we drove up there, and we would just talk about stuff. That's when you kind of had your like heart-to-hearts with your buddies, and you would hang out at the top of the ranch with the sunset, and stars would come out, and you just sit up there, and if anything was eating at you, or if anything you had anything or whatever, sometimes it was just fun, and we were all just laughing, telling random stories.
I lost a friend here. Ross's family lost a son and a grandson, and I don't want you guys to go through the same thing. As a fireman, I believe in prevention and preventing a tragedy like this by wearing your seatbelt, wearing protective gear, not driving at night, and driving sober.
So some safety procedures before four-wheeling or hunting would be check your PSI in the tire, make sure they're at the level that's correct for them. Make sure your brakes work, give them a check, pump them, make sure they stick, and always wear your seatbelt. For hunting, make sure your gun's unloaded in the vehicle, always keep it in a safe direction even if it is unloaded, and watch out for the surroundings and check the road in front of you. Keep your eyes on the road. So this tragic accident could have been avoided. The pain, the suffering, the friends and family have gone through over the past months could have been easily avoided just by going through a few safety steps, by checking the brakes, always wearing your seatbelt, being sober, and staying out of the hills at night so you can see where you're going.
A few things that could have been avoided for this tragic accident that had happened to Ross were, making sure that you're not driving at night, and making sure that you know exactly what's in front of you, making sure you're not under the influence of anything, you're not on your phone, you're always paying attention to what's ahead of you. And a lot of that, what happens is it falls back on you and your family, because your family's got to suffer for it and your friends have to suffer for it.
We still couldn't believe it. I mean, weeks to come afterwards, we couldn't believe it, how he was just there one day and gone the next, and it affects everybody.
So I'd like to thank Ross for teaching me how to be mechanically inclined, working with the IndyCar stuff that I do today. It's very hands-on and very independent work. You have to take things upon yourself, and Ross has taught me to do just that. So as an IndyCar mechanic, one of our top priorities is safety. As we strap a driver into a car that we built and we put everything together on it, these cars go over 230 miles an hour on some circuits. So we take our time strapping the drivers in with the safety belts and all the helmets and all the equipment, overalls and suits and shoes and all the bells and whistles, and they still have the possibility of potentially dying. And that's with all the top of the line safety gear.
I think one thing that we should have done to, avoid things would be to probably see that the brakes weren't working all that well, and just turn around, go back home, do it again when everything's working properly. But now that, from my experiences, good enough isn't enough. Make sure that it's perfect before you go, and wear your seatbelts, because if the car is not, the lap seatbelt worked, but the shoulder seatbelt didn't. And I had mine on, and I still came out. So make sure that your seatbelts are working and everything's working properly. If I were to go back and change things to slim our chances down of something tragic happening, the first would be to have the brakes working 100%, because they weren't. Second would be to, you know, have working seatbelts. My seatbelt worked halfways. The lap belt worked fine. The top shoulder belt didn't, and his didn't work at all. Third would be to not take the car out at night, especially if, you know, you've had a couple drinks. Even though we only had 1 or 2, it doesn't matter. It could play a part. And fourth thing I would change is probably not take a front-wheel drive car, small little car, out four-wheeling at all, because it's meant for the street, not the mountains. So the message of this is to all the other kids out there that are like myself, who's, you know, likes to go out and do, you know, exciting and dangerous things. There's one thing that you have to think about, and that's the bigger picture. You know, at the time you think about, you know, how much fun it is or how cool it's gonna be, and yeah, it probably is gonna be cool, but if something tragic happens and you pass away, you know, what do you leave behind? You leave behind you know, your family, your friends, everybody who cares about you.
You really gotta think about the big picture. Think about other people, your family, your friends, whoever really cares about you, or maybe even relies on you. Because it's bigger than just you.
I'd like to share a story with you that happened to me this past summer. It's surprising how many young people are dying in these off-road accidents. I met a young woman this past summer in Sonoma County, California. We instantly felt a connection. We felt each other's pain. Christina Caron lost her daughter Athena on January 16, 2021 in a side-by-side accident. Athena was 19 years old. The vehicle became out of control and hit a tree at the top hill and rolled over. Athena was thrown completely out. Her friend was not wearing a seatbelt either, but survived because Athena was sitting on her lap and held her down. The man did have a seatbelt on and he survived. Alcohol and not wearing seatbelts is not a good choice when you're behind the wheel and a passenger. It seemed like fun, but is the choices that we make in a moment that can destroy our lives. This is a crippling experience and heartache for those that are left behind. With God's blessing, there is the sadness and the joy. Christina and I have been soulmates through our love for Athena and Ross.
I think what made me most happy hanging out with Ross is he was such an easygoing guy. He was the kind of person who would stop whatever he was doing and come help you as soon as he could. He kind of give you the shirt off your back kind of guy. One of the nicest persons that I think I've ever met in my life.
So Ross was one of those standout guys. The second you meet him, you know, you don't even know him, and he'll lend you his hand. And anytime you needed help, you know, if he met you for 10 minutes somewhere at someone's house or a get together, he's always willing to lend a hand out. So please think twice about what you're doing. You know, wear that seatbelt or put on that helmet. Just take an extra second to really think about it, because the long-term effects definitely hurts the people close around you a lot more than you might think.
So my recommendation to protect yourself and your family is to check a couple things before you go. Number one would be to check your vehicle or your equipment, make sure that it's working properly. Second is check your safety equipment, whether it be seatbelts, helmets, boots, anything like that. Make sure that it's working properly, because it will help you. And three, take a buddy. If you can't take a buddy, let somebody know where you're going.
I don't want you or your family to suffer the tragedy like we did, so please make the right choices and be safe.
Thank you.